In the world of communication, sometimes what is left unsaid is far more important than the words appearing on the surface. There is a type of phrase that sounds very normal, even effortless. It is not a fiery breakup, it is not a direct insult, and it is not a thunderous rage. But right after it is uttered, if you are not alert, you will notice the way she looks at you begins to change. There is no big explosion, no drama, just a moment of silence where a test has just been performed. At Femina Mind, we do not analyze these things to make you paranoid or to make you view your woman as an opponent. We analyze them so you understand a core truth. When a woman begins to test you, what she is truly seeking is not the content of your answer, but your status. She is unconsciously measuring the stability of the tree she is leaning on. And here is the harsh reality. If you answer the wrong way, usually because you are too kind or too afraid of losing her, you will not lose her immediately. But you begin to lose respect. It wears away bit by bit, like water dripping on a stone, until the attraction completely collapses and you do not understand why. Why do we as men often ignore these early signs? It is because we are taught to be gallant, to give in, and to be understanding. We mistakenly believe that withdrawing our boundaries to please her is the mark of a mature man. But in reality, in the psychology of attraction, when you are willing to trade your self-worth for a woman's smile, you are sending a signal that says, I am not stable enough to protect myself, so how can I protect you? Remember, testing is not an evil or manipulative game. It is an unconscious behavior of women to evaluate a man's stability, boundaries, confidence, and level of emotional dependency. Being tested does not mean you are weak, but failing to realize you are being tested or reacting out of fear is what actually lowers your status. In the Femina Mind mindset, we do not react to win or to put anyone down. We react to maintain our self-respect and our own internal stability. When you are steady enough, these tests are no longer a source of pressure, but an opportunity for you to affirm your value in the calmest way possible. Before going into specific phrases, be honest. Have you ever felt like you just finished saying something to soothe her, but instead of being happy, she seemed to dominate you even more? If you have ever felt that strange shift, leave a short comment. Awareness is the first step so that you are no longer a victim of invisible tests. Now, we will begin to strip away the first phrase, an extremely common psychological weapon. When a woman uses challenging phrases, she usually does not do so with bad intentions. It is an instinctive reflex to see how sturdy the frame of this man really is. If you wobble, she will feel insecure. If you remain steady, she can truly relax and respect you. Let us strip away the first 3 patterns in this list of testing phrases. 1. You are being too sensitive, also known as the gaslighting test. This is one of the most classic phrases used to create a power shift in a conversation. The behavior is this: you are expressing dissatisfaction with one of her actions. For example, she arrived late without telling you, or she acted disrespectfully toward you. Instead of apologizing or explaining, she responds, "Oh my God, you are being too sensitive," or "You are overreacting." The psychology behind this is that she is checking to see if you believe in yourself. She wants to know if you will immediately withdraw your point, feel guilty for having emotions, or even turn around and apologize for being too sensitive. The common mistake men make is starting a long explanation about why you are not sensitive, or worse, withdrawing your boundary to avoid being labeled as difficult. The Femina Mind approach is to not fall into the trap of debating whether you are sensitive or not. Calmly restate the facts. I am not being sensitive. I am pointing out reality. And the reality is that your action made me uncomfortable. No aggression, no retreat. Your composure is the most powerful answer. If you have ever heard this and felt like you were the one at fault, leave a comment saying "seen" to recognize this disconnect. 2. It is up to you, also known as the leadership test. It sounds like she is giving you the power to decide, but in reality, this is a test of your ability to lead and your conviction. The behavior is when you need to choose a location, a plan, or solve a problem, she tosses out the phrase, "It is up to you." The psychology is that she wants to observe if you are a man with a clear stance, or if you will start frantically trying to guess her mind by asking, "Well, what do you like to eat? Do you not like this place? How about that place?" Hesitation and excessive people-pleasing will cause you to lose significant points. The right action is to not ask back. Make a clear decision based on what you find suitable. Okay, then we are going to place X at 7 o'clock. If she truly does not like it, she will say so. If not, she will feel secure because you are a man who dares to take responsibility for his decisions. 3. I was only joking, also known as the Boundary Erosion Test. This is the most subtle way to wear down a man's boundaries. The behavior is that she makes a sarcastic remark, pokes fun at your weaknesses, or lowers your value. When she sees you reacting seriously, she immediately uses her shield. "I was only joking. Why are you being so serious?" The psychology is that this is a boundary test. If you accept her joking at the expense of the respect she has for you, the threshold for disrespect will increase over time. The mistake is forced laughter just to get it over with because you fear being seen as lacking a sense of humor. The right action is gentle but extremely clear. "I like your sense of humor, but I do not find this type of joke funny." Do not repeat it. Staying firm in protecting your personal honor is always more attractive than trying to be a funny guy who is weak. Do you realize that in all 3 situations, what she is looking for is not an argument, but your internal solidity? If you agree that boundaries must be established right from the very first jokes, hit like. Do not let these effortless phrases shake your value. At Femina Mind, we believe that the man who can lead is the man who does not let the emotions of others define his reality. Let us move to part 3 to face tests that involve higher emotional manipulation. Right now, you might not feel threatened, just slightly unsettled. Not because the words were aggressive, but because something about the tone lingered longer than it should have. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it just didn't feel neutral. That's what makes moments like this so easy to dismiss. A single phrase can sound harmless on the surface, playful even, casual, and taken alone, it rarely feels significant enough to question. So you brush it off, not wanting to sit and wanting to seem insecure or overly reactive. But in relationships, meaning isn't carried by words alone. It's carried by timing, repetition, and direction, like tapping lightly on a surface to see how solid it is, or nudging a boundary just enough to measure resistance. One tap means nothing. A pattern of taps tells you someone is gathering information. What matters here isn't whether the phrase was intentional. It's whether you felt the need to immediately adjust yourself afterward. When someone subtly probes and you respond by over-explaining, softening your stance, or seeking approval to re-stabilize the interaction, that reaction itself reveals the shift. And from here, the pattern becomes more defining. Because what follows isn't open confrontation, it's calibration. This is where dynamics quietly form, long before either person consciously names them. If you've ever replayed a simple phrase more than once in your head, stay with me. When surface tests fail to shake you, the testing goes deeper into the emotional layer and social dynamics. This is the stage where she unconsciously evaluates whether you are putting her on a pedestal or if you are maintaining your own system of values. At Femina Mind, we call this the challenge to a man's independence. 4. If you loved me, you would, also known as the Emotional Blackmail Test. This phrase uses love as leverage to negotiate your personal standards. The behavior is that she makes a request that you are inherently uncomfortable with. For example, asking you to give up a hobby, change your work plans, or do something against your principles, and attaches it to proof of your love. The psychology behind this is that she is checking to see if you are willing to trade your standards for her satisfaction. If you give in just because you fear being labeled as unloving, she will know that love is a weakness she can use to control you later. The right action is to separate love from blind compromise. I love you, but that is not related to me having to do thing X. I have my principles, and I hope you respect that. A high-value man never trades his life principles for love. 5. My ex was not like that, also known as the comparison test. Comparison is one of the most direct status tests men encounter. The behavior is that she mentions an action, a gift, or a personality trait of an ex in a more positive way than yours. The psychology is that she wants to see if you become competitive, insecure, or start frantically trying to prove you are better than the ghost of the past. If you react violently or try to outdo that shadow, you have officially fallen into the lower position of a supplicant. The right action is to maintain absolute composure. Do not ask about the ex and do not explain yourself. Treat it as worthless information. A reaction like, "Oh, really?" and then continuing what you were doing is the most masculine response. You do not need to compete with anyone to affirm your position. 6. You always, also known as the Generalization Test. This is how she uses broad labels to test your emotional stability. The behavior is that instead of talking about a specific mistake, she generalizes. You are always indifferent, or you always only care about yourself. The psychology is that she is seeing if you are easily pulled into an emotional whirlpool. Will you panic and try to prove you are not like that? Or will you maintain the clarity to strip away the issue? The right action is to not debate every detail of the past. Bring the conversation back to the present. I understand you are feeling unhappy right now, but do not use the word always. Tell me specifically what you are unhappy with today, and we will handle that point. 7. The most dangerous test, it is fine, also known as the quiet withdrawal. This is no longer a spontaneous phrase, but a shift in energy. The behavior is that you know clearly there is an issue. The atmosphere is tense and she is cold. You ask, and she responds, "It is fine," but her behavior says the complete opposite. The psychology is that this is the stage where she evaluates your value without speaking. She observes if you panic, if you chase after her begging for an explanation, or if you lose sleep because of her silence. The biggest mistake is becoming submissive, texting constantly to apologize for a mistake you do not even know. This completely collapses the image of a steady man. The Femina mind approach is to observe instead of forcing her to open up. Okay, if you say it is fine, then I believe you. When you want to talk, I am here. After that, go back to your life, your work, and your passions. Let her behavior provide the answer, and do not let the silence of others control your emotions. If you have ever let it is fine, keep you awake all night, leave a comment saying quiet so we can look back at how we allowed ambiguity to control us. We are reaching the end of these tests, where you realize that the truth does not lie in what she says, but in your stability when you hear those words. We have gone through 7 phrases that seem harmless, but carry the weight of status tests. Now, let us enter the most important part. Why do women do it, and what kind of man must you become so that you are never shaken? The climax. The nature of the test is not an attack. At Femina Mind, we want you to look at this truth thoroughly. Women often challenge men not because they want to make you weak, but because they are afraid that you are already weak. A woman needs a sense of security and leadership. These tests are like an engineer tapping on the pillars of a building to see if it is truly solid or just an empty shell. When you apologize for having boundaries, you fail. When you shrink yourself to avoid conflict, you fail. When you do everything, including trading away your self-worth, just so she stops being angry, you officially lower your own status. The hardest truth to hear is this. Often, she is not intentionally making you weak. She is simply reacting to the lack of stability you showed from the beginning. When you react with the fear of loss, you have handed the keys to your emotional kingdom to someone else. Turning the tables, the power of emotional stability. Passing the test does not lie in having a clever answer or a sharp comeback. At Femina Mind, we believe you pass through internal stability. Self-respect never needs to be loud. It does not need to win an argument, it does not need to shout, and it does not need to punish the other person. It is shown in being steady enough not to trade your standards just because you fear losing someone. When you maintain composure in the face of provocative statements, you are sending an extremely powerful masculine signal. My reality is not controlled by your emotions. The closing message from Femina Mind. To summarize, remember these points. 1. Testing is not an attack, it is a measurement. 2. Do not react with fear. React with sober observation. 3. Your value is constant. No statement from anyone else can lower you unless you allow yourself to believe it. The final question is not, is she testing me? Instead, it is, if I am not chosen by her today, will I still choose myself? If you can answer yes with absolute determination, then no test can make things difficult for you. You are not manipulating. You are not controlling. You are simply a man of value who knows exactly who he is and never lets his boundaries be eroded by effortless words. Thank you for walking with Femina Mind in this journey of decoding clarity. If this video has helped you see through the tests you have faced, hit like and subscribe. We will continue to walk with you to build an internal state that cannot be shaken. Goodbye, and remember, your steadiness is the greatest gift you can give to yourself and to your relationship.